Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the BURKE Brigade. Today is Thursday, August 31st. I'm Matthew Burke.
And I'm Jennifer Burke.
And we're the BURKE Brigade. Brought to you by the Liberty Daily,
your conservative alternative to the Drudge Report.
Visit thelibertydaily.com and you will love it. You know, it's amazing. The Liberty Daily has been growing in spades because people have been getting on different social media sites and just randomly talking about it in comments.
Yes, they have, and we appreciate those people very much, helping us get the word spread. You know, a long time ago, we started to grow kind of disappointed and Drudge. Remember the whole Miley Cyrus twerking stuff?
Yeah, it was just
obsessed. He's talking about that. He's talking about other things. He was linking to way too many liberal. I click on something. I don't want to give this liberal site my click.
New York Times.
Yeah. So it's what people love about the Liberty Daily is that we have trusted conservative sites that we have gone to for years and that we trust, and those are the sites that we link to.
Right.
And we're not afraid to go hard even in our titles for our links.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we will clean those up and tell you the real story. For example, if someone's a Marxist, we'll call them a Marxist. You know, not necessarily a liberal, because most of them are hardcore Marxists, traitors, etc., etc. Okay, so visit thelibertydaily.com. Now, let's get going here. This is probably the biggest story today. And what it is, this is from Town Hall, Katie Pavlich. James Comey decided he wasn't going to refer Hillary for prosecution for months before the FBI investigation was even over.
Months before the investigation months before FBI agents had even interviewed certain people.
So that it was a predetermined conclusion while the investigation was going on and before he had even interviewed Hillary.
Right.
And 17 people, he had already made the decision.
So we basically wasted who knows how many millions of taxpayer dollars and resources for a sham investigation.
Total sham.
That had already been decided, just so that, you know, the left could say, well, the FBI did an investigation and they didn't find anything. Well, actually, they did find something, because in Comey's statement that day when he announced there would be no charges, he said basically if anyone else had done what she did, they'd be facing criminal charges.
Right. So that's exactly right. They went through the motions to make it look like they were doing something, which is kind of modus operandi for Washington, D.C., by the way, but that's a different story altogether. So again, from townhall.com, Katie Pavlich. According to new transcripts released by the Senate Judiciary Committee Thursday afternoon, former FBI Director James Comey made the decision not to refer then Democrat president candidate Hillary Clinton for prosecution long before ever interviewing key witnesses. Members of the committee allege Comey made the decision months before FBI agents were finished with the criminal investigation. Remember, it's not a matter, Loretta Lynch. It's a criminal investigation. The FBI does not have such a thing as matters. Into her mishandling of classified information during her time as Secretary of State. The transcripts were revealed in a letter sent to current FBI Director Christopher Wray, W-R-A-Y. Now, by all accounts, what I've seen, he's a Comey stooge. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this happens. So it went to Christopher Wray, and so lawmakers are demanding an explanation and more documents concerning the case. So some of the people that were not interviewed before the foregone conclusion was made in advance were Hillary Clinton herself, and her closest aides that include Brian Pagliano, who set up her illegal server, her private server, where she was doing government business illegally, where she had top secret information on it illegally. Her chief of staff, Cheryl Mills, who was granted immunity. So why would they grant her immunity? Why would they give her immunity if the decision was already made?
Right, because it was
corrupt.
Yeah, it was just
utterly,
a show.
Utterly corrupt.
Kabuki theater at its finest, or at its worst, actually.
Right. Next topic.
You know, why do people keep propping up insane lunatic Keith Olbermann? I mean, the man was a failed sportscaster, and then he went to CNN, and then
MSNBC,
and he was a failure there. And then he went back into sportscasting, and I'm shocked. ESPN is the one that hired him, correct?
Yeah, but they fired him.
I know, but they fired him. But they did hire him after all the disgusting, vile things that he said about Republicans when he was with MSNBC.
Well, he fits right in there.
Exactly. So that was a clue. You know, I mean, we've seen ESPN is now nothing but a arm of the Democrat Party as well, wanting to revere liberal hosts who want to talk badly about people on the right, and then silence and fire people who have conservative views. So
yeah, I think Steve Deace coined the phrase that ESPN is MSNBC with footballs.
Right. That's perfect.
Who's he with?
Perfect.
Who's he with now? He's with
GQ magazine.
So
he's doing videos for GQ magazine.
He's like the stapler guy in office.
They said I could have
my red stapler, please. I just
want my paycheck.
No, a little further down. What was the guy's name? I can't remember.
The boss?
No, not the boss.
The stapler guy?
Yeah.
I can't remember. We'll have to look it up while I'm talking about this.
No, I'm sure our vast listening audience knows what it is.
Dang it!
They get it.
So, today, you know, the left, they want to talk about Trump and some of the things that he may have said and done in the past, but I'm sorry. I don't ever recall Trump going out on social media and saying anything like this. So, Betsy DeVos DeVos's family has long been supporters of charter schools. She actually runs an organization, or ran an organization before becoming the Education Secretary. And that's one of the reasons the left hates her. They hate her because she's a Republican. They hate her because she's a rich Republican instead of a rich Democrat, in which case they love her. And they hate her because she's a charter school proponent.
Right. They hate her because she's for school choice, because she wants to give poor black kids school choice from the Democrat brainwashing institutions to give them a chance in life.
That has failed them.
Because they want to keep every minority dumb and stupid and voting Democrat if they can.
So Betsy DeVos on this past Saturday, after Hurricane Harvey hit Houston and the devastation was just apparent. This is long before the flood waters rose even more and more, but we could tell the devastation. She tweeted, "Our prayers are with all of those in the path of #Hurricane Harvey. At US.ed.gov stands ready to assist impacted schools." Keith Olbermann figured this would be the perfect time to attack a woman.
How does she get triggered by that?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's like a sweet
This is what he said.
thing.
"The hurricane is going to do less damage to schools than you are, M-effer," except he said mother effer. He said, wrote out the full word. Spelled it out, the whole thing. This was Saturday. There was no outrage by the media, by the mainstream Democrat media, propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. No outrage. No one said anything. Now didn't come to her rescue. You didn't have Michelle Obama denouncing those words about the education secretary. Nothing. So, good for them. USA Today, a reporter for USA Today, saw the tweet, and so he decided to watch it for a while. It had gotten over 19,000 views. He said far more than Olbermann's...
Retweets, right?
Yeah, retweets. Far more than Olbermann's videos gets views. And he was watching it to see it. Oh, and then 52,000 retweets in 48 hours. So he's watching it to see if there was any outrage from the media, or any media even addressed it, and they didn't. So he sent emails to GQ asking if they, to GQ's editor, which is part of the Condé Nast vast magazine empire. He did not hear a response. And so when he never heard a response, he started tweeting them. He started tweeting the messages on Twitter. And shortly later is when an apology finally came from Keith Olbermann. And basically what it was an advertisement for his book. He said, "I apologize without reservation to Betsy DeVos Ed for the gutter language. I'll reserve it for the people who truly deserve it." And then he has a picture of his book, which will be yet another failure to add to his collection. His book, Trump is Effing Crazy. This is about a man not in his right mind who has nuclear weapons. It is the greatest crisis of our lives right now.
Oh, really? I think Hurricane Harvey is a pretty big crisis.
Right. And Keith Olbermann, I'm sorry, you have showed numerous times in the past that you are mentally unstable.
He's a hater.
You are so filled with rage and hate that your impulsiveness causes you to call the female Secretary of Education a mother effer. And Trump's unstable? I think maybe you should look in the mirror, because if you had some nuclear codes, I'm not sure who would feel too comfortable, because you can look into your eyes and you can tell he ain't all there.
So the moral of the story is, if you want to enact results, you have to publicly shame these leftist losers on Twitter to their bosses. You have to do what the left tries to do to us.
Yeah, because
unfortunately you have to fight fire with fire in this case. So you go after their bosses and you shame them on Twitter into getting it corrected.
Right, with the whole, remember Kathy Griffin and
you bet they threatened to fire him. He's like
right.
Okay. I am so sorry. I used that gutter link. Obviously, he's not sorry.
Right,
but
he typed
it still
it,
is him getting kneecapped, and it's a good thing.
Right, and I'm sure he was checking to see how many retweets he got. But the left. This is why social media is important, and this is why social media outlets owned by lefties is trying to do what they can to silence and attack dissent, to prevent the messages of conservatives from getting out by basically not showing their stuff to people, or in the case of YouTube, trying to shut down popular conservative channels by not allowing them to have a revenue stream.
Right.
But Kathy Griffin, CNN waited more than 24 hours to see if it would blow over.
I think it was a lot more than, it was 48 or 30.
Was it when she did the decapitated head simulation of President Donald Trump with the bloody Trump-like mask? They waited to see if it would blow over, and it was only when it didn't that they actually stepped in and fired her. And the same thing with the other guy. What was that other guy? He hosted some show on CNN on the weekends. They waited a while.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he said some profanity to Donald Trump.
Muslim guy.
They waited to see if he was if it was going to blow over with him, and only when it didn't did they actually fire him.
Right. So they have no moral compass. They have no moral values. But if you hound them, they will get in line. But they do have to be hounded, because they're probably applauding those kind of actions. Okay, I believe, meanwhile, there are some important things going on in the world, but Rhino establishment stooge John McCain is hyper-focused on catfish. So we have what some people are calling, I've seen, a lot of things
storm.
That this is not necessarily true, but yeah, one of the biggest storms in history, certainly the biggest we've seen probably in the United States in our lives. With Hurricane Harvey in Texas and Houston, and it's just utterly horrific. You've got the U.S. on the brink of a nuclear war, perhaps, with North Korea. I mean, you've got, Obamacare imploding and McCain voting against even beginning the process of repealing it. But he is focused.
Hyper, like a laser beam.
On catfish. From the Washington Times. Senator John McCain, this is not a joke. This is not the Onion. This is Washington Times. This is McCain. Senator John McCain is mounting a last-minute plea. Oh my gosh, so dire. To the U.S. Department of Agriculture to delay implementation of new catfish inspection rules, slated to fully kick in Friday. It's an emergency because that's tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
Saying all catfish inspections should be returned to the jurisdiction of the Food and Drug Administration, because we all know they don't make any mistakes.
Right.
Mr. McCain said the new inspection regime, that sounds a little authoritarian, under the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service, FSIS, we know how the government likes acronyms because they can't keep their damn agency straight.
There's so many of them.
I know it. Is a thinly disguised trade barrier against Asian catfish imports at the hands of domestic farmers in southern states. Quote, this wasteful program is a classic example of short-sighted anti-free market protectionism at its worst, Mr. McCain wrote. So he is hyper-focused on catfish. I don't know a darn thing about this issue. Maybe it's somewhat important. Maybe it's not. I know I'm 55 years old. I haven't eaten catfish in about 53 of those years.
Well,
but that's just me.
I do love me some catfish because I am from the South.
Right. But my point is, this is not earth-shaking.
No, this is not imperative.
Focus on Obamacare.
Yeah, focus
How about
on
Obamacare?
Focus on lessening the tax burden and freeing the American people who have been made slaves by their government for far too long. Focus on helping the victims of Hurricane Harvey. Focus on
paying down the national debt, cutting wage.
The VA, and getting them veterans the care that they need. Focus on the national debt. Catfish, really?
I think I should stop calling him Rhino McCain and instead call him John Catfish McCain. Almost like that old Oakland...
Catfish Johnny.
I mean, almost like that old Oakland A's / New York Yankees pitcher from the 70s something. Catfish Hunter. So we just call him Catfish McCain.
Caddy. Can I call him Caddy for short?
People, we should probably wait till it like mounts up and people make the... Old Catfish McCain.
Catfish McCain. Catfish John.
What a guy. So, professional racial grievance industry profiteer Jesse Jackson was in the news this week, was he not?
I think, he's so rarely in the news. I think he was trying to get himself in the news.
Trying to get relevance?
Yes, trying to gain some relevance. Jealous of withering away Al Sharpton.
Let's, can you play there? And... Okay, let me play it. You tell him what happened, and I will. I'll pull up the video.
So Jesse Jackson, I refuse to call him a reverend because that would be blasphemous. Said this week that President Donald Trump won't make it to heaven. He's the judge and jury, I guess. He knows better than God. President Trump won't make it to heaven because his proposed immigration policies that require legal immigrants speak English, be qualified, and have a job skill is a policy, he said, that eliminates Trump from heaven's gates. And then he went on to ignorantly say this. Jesus would not qualify to come in Trump's country. He would not qualify to get into Jesus' kingdom. That's what he said. And so when Matthew first told me about this, I looked at him and I said, Jesus was a carpenter. What does he mean he had no skill? And that's precisely, without me even knowing that he wrote that is precisely what he wrote. So,
and since Jesus is the Son of God, I'm pretty sure he could pick up English. Right. The Word was God. Right. I mean, Jesus was pretty good with the Word.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he could.
But a fake reverend like Jesse Jackson wouldn't know that.
Those are just minor details.
They wouldn't know that.
And like you said, he was a carpenter, so he had a job skill. So that's... the falsehood number one. He would have been allowed into this country.
And we've talked before about, long time ago, immigrants coming over had to be sponsored by somebody. They had to be sponsored.
Right.
And that person sponsoring them had to say, this person who I am sponsoring will not become a burden on the government.
Right. They won't become dependent. They won't be on welfare. Either they will get work or I will take care of them. So this is going to be a little bit hard to understand because Jesse is beginning to sound a little bit like Mitch McConnell.
Oh, look, he's speaking at Al Sharpton's event, I guess.
Yeah, how about that? And, Jesse Jackson, he's the founder of the Rainbow Push Communism Coalition. It's a communist front group. Let's try to listen here.
Trump says you must be able to speak language, English, qualified, and have a job.
I don't think he knows English. Listen to this.
He didn't even say be qualified. He said qualified.
Trump says you must be able to speak language, English, qualified, and have a job skill. Jesus was not qualified to come in Trump's country.
He didn't even say be qualified. He said qualified.
And this is reading. So he might not be qualified to be in this country. He doesn't even know how to read.
Who gave him a degree to become a fake reverend?
Somebody's got to research that. That is a phony baloney.
He was not qualified to get in Jesus' kingdom.
Yeah.
I was hungry, you fed me. Naked, you clothed me. Captive, you set me free.
The Bible never says through the force of Caesar, fake Reverend Jesse. This is why you're a fake reverend. You bastardize the Bible in order to push liberal Marxist policies.
Right, but
propaganda.
Leave it to a race hustler to bastardize Scripture in order to take a cheap political shot. By the way, Jesse, I've got a question for you. Is your corrupt Democrat son still in prison? Jesse Jackson Jr.? Boy, he's a real peach.
Right.
Wonder if he's going to make it into Jesus' kingdom.
He'll probably run for president in 2020.
Yeah, he's probably a candidate. I hear they're looking for, younger people, your namesake. Oh, and how's that kid you had out of wedlock doing? How's he doing?
The Reverend Jesse?
I'm sure they're all going to heaven, and you'll be there too. I mean, Jesus forgives sins, but I don't think he should be the judge. I really don't.
No.
I think
Jesse,
Jesus himself probably has this handled.
God does not have you at his pearly gates deciding who's going to go to heaven or not.
And
get over yourself.
And does he still want to cut Obama's nuts out? That's what he said.
Yes, that's what he said.
I want to cut Obama's nuts out. He talking down to black people. I don't know. Did you repent for that, Jesse? That's a little bit. I mean, for a reverend.
Yeah.
I mean, how many reverends do you know that go around talking about cutting people's nuts out?
Just fake ones.
That's right, just fake ones. But meanwhile, John McCain is focused like a laser beam on catfish.
Catfish.
So that's all we know about that.
I'll give you this much, John. I'll give you props for this. I sure could go for some of my mama's fried catfish and hush puppies right about now.
Yeah, that's the only good thing about that story is you've made my wife crave catfish. So you've got a story related to racist bananas.
This is just embarrassing. This is embarrassing. Black people, and again, I'm black. Look at the picture of me on
progressive insanity.
Black people, get a freaking grip. So apparently, at Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, some guy was eating a banana. I don't know who the guy was eating a banana across campus. He didn't see a trash can. And so I guess he figured, the birds maybe would peck at the banana. He tossed the banana and it landed up in the tree.
They're biodegradable. Have you ever tossed a banana? I used to do it all the time. I'd eat one on the way to work and look to make sure there's no cars behind me, no cops around. And, this is in Washington, D.C. And I'd throw it into a bush or something. I mean, literally, you can throw a banana in your yard in the morning and go out there and by the evening, if it's a hot day, you'll barely be able to find it. I mean, they're so biodegradable. So he flung it in the tree. Go on.
Right. So,
but it's racist.
3 black students found the banana peel and were triggered. Triggered. To be clear, many members of our community were hurt, frightened, and upset. Frightened by banana peel. By banana peel. Your mama raised you to be such a freaking wuss that the sight of a banana peel scares you. What do you do when you go into the grocery store? Do you want the grocers to cover up the bananas because they're going to offend you?
What are you going to do if we go to war and you get drafted? God forbid. We are in such trouble.
We'll lose.
I think this is what they call a snowflake, right? Or is that racist too?
The president of one sorority said bananas have historically been used to demean black people.
Really? So what they're saying
is great.
Isn't that racist to think that way?
This article by Todd Starnes. Todd Starnes goes, they've also historically been used to make banana pudding.
Right.
Right? So, then this spawned this massive discussion, wrapping up as more and more students stood and left the room, some in tears and frustration. Members began texting friends to come and pick them up from the camp, since no one had been allowed to drive his or her car from the retreat. The remainder of the retreat was canceled because they were so... A banana! Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Please.
Somebody threw a banana in a tree.
Please! My goodness! Is this the generation that we have raised?
Yeah, it is.
Look! Black people who are offended by the banana. I have a secret to admit, honey.
What?
I like bananas with peanut butter. Especially with peanut butter.
They are upgraded with peanut butter.
There's nothing better than having a banana and then putting a tiny little peanut butter on it and then eating it and then putting a little bit more peanut butter on it and taking another bite. And you know what? When I get to the end of eating the banana and I see the banana peel, you know what doesn't happen?
What?
I don't freak out and bust out in tears because this banana peel is racist. This is embarrassing.
So what happens if you throw the banana peel in the garbage?
If they look and see it in the garbage, you have triggered them.
Isn't that like saying,
it's a microaggression.
You're throwing somebody in the garbage?
You should have wrapped it in a paper towel.
You should just ate it.
So my black eyes couldn't see it.
Good Lord.
Have mercy, as Esther would say.
Such a
this
racist.
This is so embarrassing.
So racist, so insensitive you are.
I'm just literally
terrible.
Embarrassed for these people and their parents who raised them to be...
I don't think it's. I don't even think
idiots.
it's the parents. I think it's the educators. I think it's the politicians. I think it's these progressive leftist students. They try to get everybody into these, African studies for cross-dressing lesbian transvestites who are, bi-curious or something. I mean, they're just insane. And they are teaching everybody to be a victim because that's how the Democrat Party survives.
So this is what
they're victim pimps.
The Old Miss spokesman said.
Well, then the guy apologized, right?
The guy apologized. He was like, "I didn't mean to cause it. I just couldn't find a trash can." So
what you should have said?
I just
take this banana and shove it up your ass.
I wouldn't doubt that people try to get him expelled from school.
Good God!
So this is what Old Miss spokesperson said. We are aware of the situation and are working to address it through appropriate channels. Since we became aware of what occurred at the fraternity and sororities communities retreat, UM staff acted quickly in an effort to engage discussion with students. So this is a great point by Todd Starnes. Does that mean that Ole Miss will ban racially offensive fruit and vegetables from campus dining halls? Has there been a call to banish banana nut bread or ice cream sundaes or, heaven forbid, banana pudding?
What about watermelon? What about fried chicken? Those are racist.
Hey, you can't go into a black neighborhood without seeing a fried chicken joint. I'm just saying.
You're racist.
I'm just saying.
That's so racist.
I love me some Frenchie's fried chicken.
You cannot say that.
99 cents for 2 dark meat pieces on Wednesdays.
Okay, normally,
can't get it here, though. Only in Texas and Louisiana.
We're going to shift here. Normally, I'm not a big fan of bipartisanship because it only goes one way. There is no such thing as a Democrat compromising with a Republican. There is a such thing as fake Republicans like John McCain, who, by the way, is really taking care of that catfish matter.
No, rest easy, folks.
I got the catfish. Just call me Catfish McCain.
Catfish Johnny.
So, anywho, this is a case where I am for bipartisanship because Louisiana, they're having problems there too, obviously, because of Hurricane Harvey, which has dumped, massive rainfall on Louisiana as well. He is a liberal Democrat governor, but God bless him. he could have got on TV like most Democrats and lied through his teeth. And this guy actually told Cuomo that, Chris Cuomo from CNBC,
of the Cuomo family, the limousine liberal New Yorkers.
Right. That the Trump administration, the federal government, has given them everything he needs. So it's probably a bad day for Chris Cuomo. Let's listen.
What are you anticipating in terms of need?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, the federal government has been excellent. The president has called twice. He signed the declaration we requested within a few hours of our making the request on Sunday evening. Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Duke, has been wonderful. And FEMA Administrator Brock has been great as well.
Well, they don't like to hear that.
I'm surprised he didn't cut his mic and claim to have technical issues.
I'm surprised they haven't impeached him. I mean, he's obviously not part of the resistance. He's actually a human brain.
With a brain.
With a brain, yeah. That can be honest and objective and just not resist we much.
And for this, we much. I can't. It was so bad. That's Al Sharpton. That's our best Al Sharpton impersonation. It was so incoherent. You can't even repeat it.
So there's this guy on CNN. Speaking of CNN, we talked about CNN. Chris Cuomo rhymes with. There's another host. How do you say his first name? Kamau?
I have no idea.
Kamau?
Shamu?
No, that's a different contributor. Kamau. I'm pretty sure Tucker Carlson's going to say it right here. But Camus, if I'm saying it right, Bell is a CNN host. He has this show. He's been hosting it for, I believe, a couple of years. And it's got something to do with racism in America. It's called, Shades of something or other.
Yeah.
It's basically, he's skin color obsessed. So he was speaking at an Antifa, America-hating communist rally, inciting violence. But that's not a problem. So Tucker Carlson is calling for his firing. Let's listen.
Kamau Bell is, among other things, a host on CNN.
So that's how I said Kamau. Like, ow, that hurt. As an Antifa thug is bashing you over the head.
Right.
He fronts a show on that channel called United Shades of America. It's run there for 2 seasons now. Bell calls himself a political provocateur, but that doesn't quite capture it. In fact, he is a supporter of Antifa. On Sunday, Bell showed up at the No Hate in the Bay rally and addressed the crowd with a bullhorn. You remember the event? It's the one where mobs in black masks attacked people they thought might have voted for Donald Trump. Bell offered his encouragement.
So when the Nazis leave, as they have left by Nazis behind, you have to stand up for the black people, for the brown people, for the LGBT people, for the immigrants, for everybody, every day!
So who do you leave out of that equation?
Yeah, he don't care about Whitey.
No, old Whitey. They keep me down, old Whitey. And it's because he's a racist.
This is who CNN. Kathy Griffin.
Right.
Whatever the other, Riesler, whatever, that Muslim dude who said profanity towards Donald Trump. And this dude. These are the people CNN sees as real talent.
Oh, and then, another communist, Van Jones.
Van Jones.
Yeah. These guys are pushing for a race war.
Keep in mind, this ironically named anti-hate rally was created to oppose the Patriot Prayer event organized by Joey Gibson. We've had Gibson on this show several times. Gibson is not a Nazi. He's not even close. He's politically moderate. Antifa attacked him anyway. They knocked him off his feet, pepper sprayed him, smashed him in the head with a pole. Last night we talked to a man called Keith Campbell. He's not a Nazi either. He just happened to be standing at the event with a camera. Antifa thugs knocked him to the ground and began pummeling him. They might have killed him if a conscientious liberal hadn't shielded Campbell with his body.
But they're against hate, keep in mind.
Joey Gibson and Keith Campbell are normal people. They believe in American ideas like free speech and free association. That's why Antifa attacked them, because Antifa does not believe in those things, or for that matter, in liberal democracy.
Pause it for a second, hon. So, if you could just see this.
Yeah, he's
See
showing
this
these thugs.
image. These people are supposedly part of an anti-hate rally.
That's a front.
And they are literally probably, what, honey, 20, 30, 40 on one?
Oh yeah, that's what they do.
Bashing
They gang up
people
on
in
you.
the head, kicking them.
It's mob rule. The left.
This is today's Democrat
They
Party.
have to create anarchy and mayhem before they can bring in communism, which is what they ultimately want.
Mm-hmm.
I've studied these groups till I'm blue in the face. They can call themselves, the Southern Poverty Law Center or Media Matters, but when it gets right down to it, every last one of them are communist front groups. You'll never ever hear them reject communism ever.
No.
If
Ever.
you lined up
the media, you'll never hear the Democrat media complex ask them to denounce communism.
Do you reject
or
communism?
Marxism.
No. I mean, how many Republicans do they play this game with? Do you reject
White supremacy.
price? Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, I do. Of course. That's a dumbass question. But yet they will never pepper them with, do you reject communism, which has resulted in over 100 million deaths in the last century?
No.
Do you reject communism and everything it stands for? No, they will never do that. Why? Because they agree with it.
That's what they want.
And that's why until recently, until they've been shamed, and it's still rare, you had Pelosi, issue a fairly good statement about it, you won't hear them condemn this group. And even though they may condemn the violence eventually, if they're hammered enough, they will never condemn the ideology. They
Right.
agree with the ideology.
Right.
This is the revolution that Bernie Sanders talks about.
Yep.
This is the same language that inspired James Hodgkinson, a progressive terrorist, to go shoot conservative Republicans. Steve Scalia's not a conservative, but the dude had a list in his hand, in his pocket, of members of the House Freedom Caucus.
Right. Right.
That's who
and
he was
the media,
actually
the
shooting
media
at.
want to talk about, the violence that Trump's words have spawned. Okay,
They haven't spawned any violence.
It hasn't spawned any violence. It was one guy at one rally who punched someone in the face. That's it. Their words inspired, and their fixation on the spreading of just made-up lies, unfounded lies, stated as truth, inspired a man to take a gun and go try to kill a bunch of Republicans.
He could have killed 30 people if it was a good shot.
He could have. I mean, he asked, who's on the field?
But
Are they
this
Republicans
is
or
what
Democrats?
inspires these white supremacists. Is you have this Kamau Bell from CNN saying he loves everybody except white people. So, if you're a little bit sensitive of that gives these white supremacists energy. It gives them a reason to do what they're doing. That's why they can go around with these signs that say, don't replace us. Because this Beneficich does want to.
Right.
If he had his way.
Right. And not every, these people act like every white person who has pride in America is a xenophobic white supremacist.
Well, he's saying they're Nazis. If you're white, you're a Nazi.
KKK
By Nazis,
member.
you're white, so you're a Nazi.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
If you
let's
have pride in
listen to
America,
Tucker.
that's
This
what
is
you
one
are.
of the best, people I've seen on TV describe what they're really doing.
Capitalism. They hate this country. They want to tear it down. They are totalitarian in their beliefs and in their aims.
Bingo.
Even if they didn't use violence, Antifa would still be illegitimate
That's
and a
right.
threat to America.
Yep.
None of that seems to matter to Kamau Bell. He's happy to stand up on stage and call his opponents Nazis. That's not a label you use on people you want to debate. It's a label you use to incite rage.
Because, as we always talk about here on the BURKE Brigade, in our long history of 20 episodes, they can't debate. That's why they always result to violence. Always. They can't debate anything. They have to use force.
He had to know how this would end. He did it anyway. In the days since, Bell has not apologized. On Twitter, he issued a statement saying he wants a world safe for, quote, black people, brown people, LGBT people, immigrants, refugees,
All the Democrat victim groups that they've made into victims.
Muslims, Jewish people, pagans, Unitarian Universalists, Mormons, disabled people, poor
Oh, now they're trying to make the Mormons victims.
people, mentally ill people, all people of color, Sikhs, Palestinians, homeless people, Houston's people, and all people affected by the hurricane, climate change scientists,
Who are frauds.
public school teachers, freedom fighters, people caught up in the criminal justice system,
Freedom fighters, that means Antifa.
Over some BS, minimum wage workers, open micers, and even white people, especially the white...
Oh, and last but not least, even the white people, but specifically the thugs at Berkeley that are beating the hell out of people.
Allies out in those Berkeley streets today, and the white half of my children.
Also, he married a white woman.
So not so not his white wife.
He hates white people.
Not his white wife or white ex-wife. Don't know what she is, but only the white half of his kid.
Oh yeah, why'd you stick it in her if she's so white?
Listen to Mediaites title about Tucker's righteous rant. Tucker Carlson accuses CNN's W. Kamau Bell of, quote, peddling hate.
Oh yeah, they won't admit it.
Quote. I think it's pretty obvious he's peddling hate.
Yeah, okay. Tucker calls for his firing, so good for him.
Well, that's a long list, but not everyone, as you'll notice, got equal treatment. Imagine if we spoke at a rally where right-wingers in masks tried to kill people they disagreed with, Hillary voters maybe. And then afterward, we issued a statement saying we were just working on behalf of whites, Christians, gun owners, taxpayers, maybe even some black people, especially those who voted Republican.
Do you imagine?
How would that go over? This show would be canceled.
That would go over like a fart in church.
Canceled quickly, and it would deserve to be canceled. If you're not willing to say you want a world safe for all Americans equally, you are peddling hate, and Bell is. We contacted CNN to see if they had any response to one of their anchors stoking violent extremism as a side gig. They have not responded so far. We also invited Bell on tonight to see if he'd be willing to defend what he did. He wasn't. Joe Concha writes about media.
So he goes on, this is a long clip, but he goes on to call for his firing, so good for him. Are you a Kamau fan?
Never.
No, I saw that racist show of his once. I sat there and watched it. It's like, you can tell this guy's a hater. No, big time lefty, giving his own gig. Utterly
by a white
shameful.
person.
Yeah. Oh, and he noticed in their global warming frauds. Speaking of global warming frauds, we have an excellent editorial today in investors.com, the Investors Business Daily, and it's entitled "No, Michael Mann, Global Warming Didn't Cause Hurricane Harvey's Devastation." And it says global warming. When a controversial climatologist claims Hurricane Harvey's brutal downpour that devastated Houston is a result of global warming, it warrants examining the claim. We have, and it appears baseless. But that won't stop climate change extremists from making that claim again in the future. First, a little background. Penn State meteorologist Professor Michael Mann. Now, I remember him, I'm going off script here, I remember him from the ClimateGate scandals when they were doctoring data to make it look like there's global warming where none exists. So you can, Google or Bing, ClimateGate. There's like ClimateGate 1, ClimateGate 2, I think there's even a ClimateGate 3, where these so-called scientists were caught doctoring data to continue the narrative that there is such a thing as man-made global warming. Now, this has never been proven, but it's a religion of the left. It's a man-made religion because they get billions and billions of dollars from the government. And why is that? Because all of the solutions involve more big government and more control over the individual. So let's go back here. In this case, it was temperature data. Michael Mann's famous hockey stick rendition. Remember Al Gore? Hockey stick. The hockey stick. Rendition of temperature and climate change makes it appear as if temperature rises sharply in the 19th century as carbon dioxide from the Industrial Revolution began to build up and then soared uncontrollably in recent years to near record highs for the last millennium. Now, Mann used proxy data for much of his chart, which, because of its distinctive shape, was soon called the hockey stick. You know, like a hockey stick laying on the ground, and then all of a sudden, you know, where you hit the puck is pointing up to the sky to make it look like, oh my God, it's just skyrocketing. It was utterly phony. It became the symbol of, quote, science, end of quote, proving that global warming was now disastrously heating our planet. And it was the centerpiece of the United Nations' efforts to propagandize on behalf of making the developed world poorer to temper the effects of global warming. Again, because the UN is anti-capitalism, pro-communism. So it makes perfect sense. What do you have to do? You have to kill the polluters. Who are the polluters? Capitalists. Perfect. The UN's proposals would require a massive decline in the West's standard of living and hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes, which would accomplish the goal. The only problem is, according to critics, man's data were manipulated in such a way as to make them incorrect. Ironically, his man published his hockey stick paper in 1998, satellite temperature data, the most complete and accurate data we have, show virtually no statistical change in global temperatures. So he is making the whole thing up. Now he is saying, I'm not going to go into this. Is deep in the
weeds here.
Weeds, thank you. It's absolutely based on nothing. Hurricanes have been happening less frequently.
Right. Did you say that?
Go to investors.com. You can see it. They have it documented. Very good.
1900 or.
Yeah, let's see if I can find it here.
You should definitely read that part.
Okay. I can find it. Here we go. So they interviewed a University of Colorado professor who said, quote, "It's not a good look for scientists or journalists who are promoting this issue. Pilkey destroys the notion that global warming has made hurricanes or tropical storms worse by noting that from 1926 to 1969, a period of 44 years, there were 14 Category 4 hurricanes that made landfall, in other words, hit the U.S. From 1970 to 2017, roughly the same time, 47 years later, there have been just 4. So you went from 14 hurricanes, Category 4s, over 44 years from 1926 to 1969. But then the next 47 years, there were only 4. Now, according to this scientist, Michael Mann, from the University of Pennsylvania, if you go to 14 to 4, that's an increase somehow.
Wow, yeah.
And he took math.
Mm-hmm. And, you know,
so it's a big scam. You have a decrease in the number of these things by 70%, and but yet they call it an increase because they've got these massive megaphones in the media, CNN, MSNBC. They'll let them go on, and they just say the lies over and over again. And people are so damn dumb they believe everything they say.
Right. I saw Bernie Sanders, talked about what we need to address here.
Yeah.
What we need to address in the future with this aftermath is the effects of climate change. Okay, so I tweeted Bolshevik Bernie.
Did you? I gotta go retweet it. I did. At Jennifer A. Burke.
And I asked him, I said, so did climate change cause the great destructive Galveston hurricane of 1900? And so a few people have written about this. Matthew said I have a teaching background. I remember years and years ago, I had a teacher. I had a student who actually did a book report or did a report on the Galveston hurricane of 1900. In this hurricane, 30,000 people were left homeless. The rest were dead. The city was basically destroyed. The death toll was believed to be anywhere between 6,000 and 12,000. Most people, settle in at 8 as the possible death toll. It was just devastating. 8,000 people dead. The city completely destroyed in Galveston by a Category 4 hurricane, which had sustained winds greater than Harvey. Harvey's sustained winds were 130. These sustained winds for the hurricane of 1900 in Galveston were 145.
Wow.
Now, do you think that old Byrne wrote me back?
No.
No. He never writes me back when I call him out on his... on his propaganda lies.
You know, and he never writes me back when I call him a communist. I wonder why. Because he is. Okay. So we're getting low on time here, and there's so much more we want to go over. But do we want to keep going, or do we want to wrap up? You probably want to wrap up.
What other story do you want to talk about, huh?
I wanted to talk about, I tell you what, go to Conservative Review. Daniel Horowitz has got an excellent piece on how we have made these people, these humans in black robes,
Who weren't even elected
are
or appointed.
are rulers. And the Founding Fathers were never intended to give them this much power. They were never given the power to shoot down laws that were passed by the people's representatives.
Heck,
they were never given
You
that.
have one federal judge that shot down a Supreme Court ruling. That doesn't even make sense.
Well,
None of it does.
none of it makes sense.
Like
So
you said, Obama ignored many a federal judge order for his unconstitutional act, truly unconstitutional acts.
Right.
Truly. So Trump and his admin should do the same for their acts that are within his role and authority as president.
Yes, so I'm just going to read a little bit of this. This is Justice Scalia, Daniel Horowitz is referring to, and this is Justice Scalia talking about
Antonin Scalia, God rest his soul.
Yeah, what a great man who actually understood the Constitution. Here's what Justice Scalia wrote at the end of his dissent in the Arizona case, the famous SB 1070 case, where these rulers, these judges, tried to say, Arizona, you're not sovereign. You don't get to determine your own laws. I mean, the Founding Fathers,
Rolling over
they would
in
be
their
doing
graves.
more than Antifa.
Yeah.
They would be doing,
muskets.
I'm just saying, I'm not calling for anything, but they would be doing more than Antifa to these judges. As is often the case, this is him, discussion of the dry legalities that are proper object of our attention suppresses the very human realities that gave rise to the suit. Arizona bears the brunt of the country's illegal immigration problem, and let us just say for the record, we live here, so we know that to be true. Its citizens feel themselves under siege by a large number of illegal immigrants who invade their property, strain their social services, and even place their lives in jeopardy. Federal officials have been unable to remedy the problem, and indeed have recently shown that they are unwilling to do so. Thousands of Arizona's estimated 400,000 illegal immigrants, including not just children but men and women under 30, are now assured immunity from enforcement and will be able to compete openly with Arizona citizens for employment. This is why Trump won huge in Arizona.
Bigly.
He goes on. Arizona has moved to protect its sovereignty. The states are sovereign. The states were created before the federal government. The states are sovereign. The states created the federal government, not the other way around. People forget that. The federal government doesn't get to tell states what to do, other than if they start violating, for example, Second Amendment rights, which or First Amendment, things like that. Federal government's job is to protect our rights. Arizona has moved to protect its sovereignty, not in contradiction of federal law, but in complete compliance with it. The laws under challenge here do not extend or revise federal immigration restrictions, but merely enforce those restrictions more effectively. So basically, Arizona was doing the job that the federal government refused to under Open Borders Obama, who wanted to import as many Democrats as he could and get them dependent on government so they could be slaves, just like he's done to the black community. If securing its territory in this fashion is not within the power of Arizona, we should cease referring to it as a sovereign state. Right, just wipe out the states. if they can't make their own laws, what's the good of having a state?
Right.
There's no reason to have a state.
How is it that Arizona can't make its own laws that actually aligned itself with federal laws, but liberal states and liberal cities can go against federal laws and deem themselves to be sanctuary cities?
That's a great point.
If you're illegal, come on over. We got your back.
No, that's exactly right. So this is why Daniel Horowitz, he wrote a book on that, on judges. I have not read it, but I hear it's excellent. And he is a brilliant and scholarly mind. So go to Conservative Review and check this out. It's Scalia. These court rulings would have erased America from history. These guys are trying to be our rulers. They are trying to be God. And at some point, when they make these rulings, we need to say, thank you for your opinion. That's all it is. You've got no power. You've got no power. You've got the power to give us your opinion. Now, F off and go away, because you are not our rulers. You are not legislators. If you want to pass laws, run for office. You don't get to determine laws. You can give us an opinion whether you think it's good or bad. Don't care. Go away. These guys have gotten way too much power, and they need to be put back in their place.
Right?
Praise God. Okay, so last but not least, there are reports that President Obama is going to, and we'll end with this, get rid of Obama's unconstitutional amnesty for young illegals that came here. Their parents brought them here, or the woman was pregnant and they hopped over the fence or whatever. It's not an ideal situation. And you know what? If you're the son or daughter of a Bonnie and Clyde couple that go rob banks and have to spend 30 or 40 years in prison, and you're left without your parents, that's not an ideal situation either. That's a problem on the parents. It's not a problem on the rest of us. And if you break laws, there are consequences, and the parents should have thought about that when they came into the country illegally. And so I hope President Trump gets rid of this DACA, because it's completely unconstitutional. It was a law made by Obama, and Obama doesn't get to make laws.
Nope.
Even if it's the greatest law in the world.
Right.
Obama doesn't get to make laws.
He went around Congress.
You want to pass a law that gives all them amnesty? That's great. I mean, I wouldn't be for that, but if you do that, at least it would be, going through the proper channels. But Obama doesn't just get to say, you know what, I'm not going to enforce immigration laws because I want more Democrat voters.
President Pen and Phone.
Yeah, Mr. Pen and Phone. That's not a problem. They don't have any problems with that. By the way, somebody sent this message. James Woods, the actor James Woods, @RealJamesWoods, is going off on Twitter about that. So you may want to check that out. We're pushing an hour here, so we are going to wrap up here on the Burke Brigade, brought to you by the Liberty Daily.
Your conservative alternative to the Drudge Report.
Visit thelibertydaily.com. Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 20 of the Burke Brigade. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. We know that you can listen, and you should listen to a lot of good people out there. We listen to them too, but we really appreciate you giving us a shot, right, hon?
Most definitely, sweetie.
I'm Matthew Burke.
And I'm Jennifer Burke.
And we are the Burke Brigade. God bless you guys.
God bless America.